we'll make a start here now. We do have people online, and it might take me a bit of time to get used to using this because I've never used it before, so bear with me. So we'll go to apologies first. We'll go to Tommy.
I'm going to Carly. Neil Leshkiller be one group of Hinfian. No apologies tonight, Chair.
Thank you. Go to Paul.
Apologies, Chair.
Thank you. John.
No apologies.
Oh, what have I done? Nothing. Okay. Okay, so item 2. Oh, sorry. And how do I do this? Do this. Councillor McGrath, can you hit? Are you there?
Apologies for Gavin McPhillips.
All right, okay, thank you. Item 2, to sign the minutes and confidential minutes of previous meetings. So that's been done. So we'll go straight to item 3, declarations of interest, please. No, nobody's indicating. So we'll go straight to item 4, and I'll hand over to John.
Thank you, Chair. So first report tonight is the monthly Estate Matters report in agenda item 5.1. Number of matters for decision and some for information in the pack. So section 2, 2.1, a request from Earn Tours Limited, who have a 21-year lease for lands at the Round O, and a request to erect and to construct a sheltered provision for visitors during inclement weather. And it's recommended approval be granted subject to the assessment of the rental income by LPS and compliance with all statutory approvals. At 2.2 then, Irvinstown Road Cross Enniskillen, we've had a request from the Department for Infrastructure to create a cycleway at the Irvinstown Road in Enniskillen, which would require a land take of 478 square metres, and that's as shown in the map at Appendix 2, and a portion of land to the front of the Cross Cemetery site. Officers have had a site meeting with DFI and also assessed proposals and determined that it wouldn't be detrimental to the remainder of the council's land holding, and it's recommended that approval is granted for disposal of the 478 square metres subject to assessment of a satisfactory compensation by LPS together with payments of any other expenses the council will have, the legal and the agent fees. And it's also recommended that DFI be granted early access to the lands to allow them to commence the scheme in autumn of 2023. Pardon me. At 2.3 then, it's in relation to workspace unit at St Angelo Airport in Enniskillen, known as Hangar 6. Balkas Limited currently have a 5-year lease of a workspace at the airport, which runs up until the 31st of December 2023. There's a tripartite lease agreement with the council and Enniskillen Airport Limited for an annual rental income of 60,000, which council gets 20%, and that's been previously assessed by LPS. And Balkas have now indicated that they would like to renew the lease for a further 5-year period from 1st of January 2024 to 31st of December 2028, and recommended that also be granted approval subject to any assessment of rental by LPS. At 2.4, request from Gaston to the West to permission to install an underground district governor at on a small area of land at the Round O adjacent to the brook, and recommended that an appropriate legal agreement be entered into with SGN in respect of the installation of the equipment, and that again will be subject to LPS assessment and compensation due to council, along with any other reasonable legal and agent fees. Moving on to 2.5, At Rossay, Lisnarrick, Waterways Ireland proposing to install a water main to serve the existing jetty into the bay, which would require pipeline across council lands to get access to the public water supply. So again, recommended for approval, but again, and subject to compensation by LPS, or assessment of compensation by LPS, full reinstatement of the lands, and the drawing up of a grant of easement. At 2.6, council is undertaking some works at the Mullaghmore landfill site, and that requires us to gain temporary access across an adjacent privately owned land. So recommended that we would enter into a short-term works license with the landowner, and we would be responsible for the landowner's legal fees and recompense as well. 2.7, then Northern Ireland Electricity has requested permission to lay underground cabling at the former Iron Hospital site in Enniskillen, and that's to enable development works at the adjacent Brewster Park site. So again, recommended approval be granted, and we enter into a way leave agreement, and again, remunerated in accordance with standard way leave rates. At then 2.8 through to 2.11, there's a number of requests in line with the Council's memorial benches and trees policy for the installation of a memorial bench and plaque at Carrybridge, Lisbalaw, subject to receipt of a fee of £550 for an application for a memorial tree and plaque at the Round O with a fee of £50. For a memorial plaque on an existing bench at Enniskillen Castle, again with a fee of £100, and an application for a memorial plaque on an existing bench at Cross Cemetery, again for a fee of £100. Pardon me. Paragraph 2.12 then, a number of requests for use of council property as set out. Fibrous for an information stand in Omagh from the 5th to the 7th of July. Belcoo Sports Festival for the use of Cottage Lawn for its annual event in 10th to the 15th of August. Swim Ulster for water safety courses at Gorchin Lakes at the end of August. And then Enniskillen Motor Club permission to use Belmore, Ballintempo and Carrigan Forest for the annual Lakeland Stages Rally at the start of September. And again, that's subject to a licence agreement, the standard fee of £220 and a bond of £500, which would be repayable on satisfactory reinstatement of the lands. And finally, in a 213, retrospective use or approval for use of council property in Gorchin Glens by Relaxed Kids. Arliston Park in Omagh by St Connor's Parents, Teachers and Friends Association in June, and as Fibrous for previous information sessions on Monday and Tuesday of this week, 3rd and 4th of July in Omagh, again charged at the commercial rate of £50 per day. Section 3 sets out a number of issues for information. These are sealing of legal documents for decisions that were previously taken by council and approved through council committees. And section 4 gives you an overview of the financial implications of the decisions that are set out earlier in the paper. And I'll not run over those again, but you can see the amounts are as described and as I've already covered within the report. And then finally, the recommendations are set out in paragraph 9.1, paragraph 1 through to 13, and then at paragraph 9.2 from 14 that you note the sealing of documents and license agreements.
Anne-Marie, are you looking to come in there? She can't hear. Anne-Marie, we can't hear you. I think you need to, that's it.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I'm
you're
appearing
okay.
to up here this evening, so I'm popping on and out. Just thanks a lot, John. That's a very, very detailed report. It covers all ends of both our county and County Fermanagh as well. and loads of work to be done there. And to see in my own area, even the Garts and Glens, things being facilitated there. We just came from opening of Our Lady herself, Dara, on Dara Mountain today. So it's good to see that park's been utilised as well. John, just on the memorial benches, who exactly is it, can we ask, for the memorial benches, and what the wording is, or who's exactly for? Maybe I've missed that.
Sorry, Chair. If I'm picking up right, you're asking, is it the name of the individuals that have submitted the applications?
Yeah.
Certainly, no problem. If you just bear with me, I suppose what it says, the applications, the request for the applications come in line with, or in line with the council's agreed policy. So I suppose I'm just conscious of the reading out the names, but it's there's an application. If you want, I can come back to you with the detail of the name of the individuals, but they have been submitted in line with the council's memorial benches and trees policy. The information the applicant provides their name, contact details, their home address, and then the wording that's proposed for the plaque. They are typically the plaques relate to deceased individuals or members of a family or a wider family circle or friends, and so it may be that they love this park or in loving memory of, or there may be the individual's name and the date of birth and the date in which they passed away. So it's just conscious, I say, of going into too much detail about individuals.
Okay. No, that's okay, John. An awful lot of work there, a big in-depth report, and I'm happy enough to propose this evening, please. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Anne-Marie. I'll just bring Roy in there.
Thank you, Chair. I'm quite happy to second all the estate matters in block.
Okay, thank you. So we have a proposal and second. Is everybody in agreement? Yeah, okay. And we'll go on to item 5. And again, you have all the papers there and read them. And I'll pass over to John.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So this is reported to the Director of Environment and Place. A number, 3 items denote for information. I'll cover each of them briefly and then happy to take any questions. First item relates to updated bylaws for pleasure grounds. This is control access, or the use and access to council facilities and open spaces. And this is, I suppose, an update on an action that had been agreed by the previous council in 2022, that we would revise and update council bylaws. So as part of the process of revising and refreshing the council bylaws, what we have looked at is updating and more appropriate use of inclusive language. The previous bylaws were legacy bylaws from Fermanagh District Council and from Omagh District Council that had been drafted back in 1983 and 1994 respectively. A copy of the redrafted bylaws with track changes is shown in Appendix 1. We've also updated the schedules of the land that will be covered by the bylaws, and include a provision to manage overnight stays on council facilities and open spaces across the district. And that really was the focus of the update when members discussed this last year. As noted in 2.14, in 2015, the then Department for Environment published guidance for local district councils to assist them in the making of the exercise of the statutory bylaw making powers. And the guidance, which is also attached within the paper, sets out the process by which council can update and amend and refresh bylaws. The guidance recommends that there should be a public consultation for a minimum period of 4 weeks. and subsequent to the public consultation process, a consultation report and a final set of draft bylaws will be brought back to members for a decision. So really presented here tonight for information that it would be the intention in August, once these the minutes from this committee have been approved by council at the end of July, that we would then proceed to a public consultation and bring a full report back to members with the draft bylaws in later this year. Moving on to 2.2, members had previously requested an update on missed household waste collections across the district, noting that this had been raised with many of them over the previous 6-month period, and particularly in the run-up to the recent local government elections. Paragraph 2.2 provides an overview of the council's waste collection service. 46,341 households across the district operating on a fortnightly schedule, and a detail as to the types of bins that are collected, the containers that are used, residual bins, dry recycling, and mixed food and garden waste. And then an overview of the number of routes that operate out of the council's 2 depots in Kellyvilly and Gortrush on a weekly basis, and an estimate of the cost of household waste collection to the council on an annual basis. So in this current year, it's just shy of £4 million, £3.94 million in this current year. Table 2.1 then provides an overview of the missed routes for the period October 2022 to June 2023 by container type. And members will note the percentages are 82%, just over 82% of all missed routes were the small food caddies that are presented across. It's 56% of the households within the district. 2.4 provided an overview.
Do you want to come in on that point there, John? No? Okay.
2.4 then, just an overview of the pattern of those miscollections, and you can see there was a particular high point in terms of miscollections in February and into March, and then that has continued to subside back down to what we see as residual levels of between 0 to 1 miscollections on a weekly basis over the last number of weeks. Given an overview of the mitigations and the management process that was in effect on an ongoing basis, but particularly over that period of time, and the work that the waste management officers had done to minimise persistent disproportionate disruptions on any given route, understand the causes, and to apply mitigations, mindful of our responsibilities in terms of prudent budget management at all times, and particularly in the face of the pressures, the financial pressures the council faced and found itself facing in the last financial year. Given an overview of some of the causes that led to that disruption, and in particular some of the work that has been ongoing over the last 3 to 6 months, particularly around additional recruitment exercises to backfill vacancies for drivers, general operatives and seasonal staff. Many of those new appointments and staff came on board during May 2023, and that's then reflected in the significant decrease in miscollections over the last 6-week period. Also noted there the work that's ongoing in respect to the council's waste transformation plan to improve efficiency and effectiveness, particularly looking at legacy issues such as task and finish. Also noting that there are wider sectoral pressures in terms of recruitment and retention of HGV drivers, not just within Fermanagh and Omagh district, but wider at a sectoral level across Northern Ireland, and indeed at an industry level in terms of recruitment and retention of HGV drivers within the private sector as well. And finally, just noting that there's continues to be significant uncertainty in terms of future policy directions around common household collection guidance and DAERA, Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs policy and legislative changes that will be required to help Northern Ireland meet its climate change objectives over the next 15 years, but will also undoubtedly have an impact on how we approach household waste collection into the future. And the final item to note there is really just for information, it's very much a heads up. DAERA have also recently published a consultation on Northern Ireland's first carbon budget. The closing date is the 11th of October, As noted within the report, it would be officers' intention to bring a full draft consultation response back to committee in September for approval before the submission date in 11th of October. So members can go on individually if they wish. There's hyperlinks in the report, and any questions and any comments that you feel would like to be reflected in the draft response, if you could provide those to me in the first instance before the 30th of August, then we'll endeavour to make sure that those are reflected into the Council's draft response, which I said we would intend to bring back to Environment and Services Committee in September. So that's 3 recommendations then at Section 8 that the Council notes the update on updated bylaws for pleasure grounds, household waste collections and the DAERA consultation on Northern Ireland's first carbon budget.
Thank you, John. And John.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, the bylaws was one which raised concern, especially towards in the middle of the lockdown the last time. But I'm also glad to see most of those have been addressed in the new bylaws. Also to see the species, I've forgotten the wording of it now, the plants, because I recently reported an incident of knotweed on council property, and I know staff were onto it very quickly, and the people who initially saw it and told me believe it was somebody just dumped it out of their garden, and now we as a council own it. There we go. It's lucky for us. The bins, John, I'm glad to see that we're starting to get over that phase where we weren't getting the bins emptied, and it's balancing out. My area did feel as though they were disproportionately not getting their bins emptied, but I'm hearing it less and less now. If we could get the amenity sites open on a regular basis now, everybody would be happy again. But that is a work in progress, and I realise how hard it is to get employees with the wages that some people can get in other areas. It's very difficult for the council to compete or to get employees suitable at the moment. So I understand there are difficulties there. So we may just have to give them more money if we're going to get them. One of the things on the bylaws is myself and yourself, Chair, was there as well. We were at the launch of the naming of the new lifeboat and the dedication of the new lifeboat centre at Killadees. On speaking to the lifeboat people themselves, one of the main things is a complete lack of bylaws on our lake. And I think going forward, anybody can take out a jet ski that will do over 70 miles an hour. There's no age restrictions, there's no license, there's no operation. And I think things like that could be a disaster waiting to happen. So as well as proposing the recommendations, Chair, can I also make a proposal that we maybe look at working with Waterways, the lifeboat and the PSNI and the council themselves on approaching Stormont to give us some sort of bylaws or laws that can be enforced on the lake to make it a safer place for all users, including there's lots of different issues there. And when you're hearing what the lifeboat staff are dealing with, that is a major problem. So that's a proposal, Chair, as well.
I'm going to bring John. Yeah, that was a great event on Saturday, and they gave us a good demonstration of the work that they do. And as somebody who takes a holiday on Irish inland waterways, I thoroughly agree with you. I'm just going to pass you back over to John.
Yeah, sorry, Chair, just in terms of just to give the example about the jet skis, obviously the bylaws as they are drafted do include some additional provisions. I think it's at paragraph 31, point 10 and point 11, and that's very much, that's reflecting the approach that Waterways Ireland currently take on the waters and the open water courses that they control, where they would have their own sets of bylaws in response of operation of craft within, on those waters. So we have attempted to and hopefully updated our bylaws, taking account of the work that Waterways Ireland currently do, so that there's a consistent approach. But take the point about working with Waterways Ireland and other agencies around the potential for any additional or new legislation.
Thank you, John. Anthony?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, and thanks, John, for that detailed presentation there. And I'm kind of coming in on the brown bin issue as well. And thanks for giving us all the details. As the other councillor said there, well, before the election, when I was out Cairns, there was a major issue was coming up about the brown bins not being issued in rural areas in Erne West. And I know my colleague Seamus Green's bringing up about Erne East as well. Just there before we changed, he used to always bring up as well. So I'm glad to see the figures and all there, and it was a major issue. So I was glad to see that it was, hopefully we're going to get the staff that it will not be happening again. And one issue was the fella was complaining about his bin not being lifted, and he did contact the town hall asking why, and he said he got no reply. They never told him why, or he got no email back, and he was kind of annoyed about that. So I just told him, I said it's a staffing issue, and that's the problem. That's why. And he was kind of glad that I had told him that. You know, he was kind of that was it. He was just would have rather if the town hall or somebody would have came back and told him that. You know, so maybe in future, maybe somebody just get back to anybody when they ring them or call them. But do you think that we're over most of the problem now with the staffing issue? Is many people looking for jobs, or if we have no relief drivers if anybody's off? Is that the main issue? So that's just one question. And I would I want to second this as well, and I'll second John's proposal there about water safety. And I know in our own lake in Loch Melvin there, jet skis and that isn't allowed on it because the fishing club has some kind of a clause there. Like, so every lake's different, but it's a very important issue. So I'd like to second that as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just I suppose on the point about if somebody hasn't had a response to an email, certainly apologise for that. Normally when queries are coming in, they come into the depot, and the team would be very diligent in responding to individuals on a one-to-one basis, whether that's queries that come in by telephone or whether it's queries that come in by email. So if something on this occasion has fallen between the cobbles, apologies for that. I suppose in response to, are we over the worst of it? I think certainly the statistics would tell us yes, that we are over the worst of it. We had a particular problem with increased absences back at the start of the year, and there's a number of reasons for that. To say some of it was down to sickness absence and pressures more generally across the service, and it's very much reflective of our staffing model. What we are working through, and I've alluded to within the report, is that there are legacy issues that we need to resolve in terms of efficiency, a more efficient and effective service, and then looking at overall service modernisation. I know that's something that I've touched on in some of the recent induction meetings with members about the need to make sure that we've got a fit-for-purpose service that can provide that service that so many members of the public and members quite rightly expect us to be able to provide.
Thanks for that, John. Anne-Marie, your hand's still up. Is that up from last time, or do you want to come in again? We can't hear you.
Sorry, it's getting back into use of this again, isn't it? No, I just want to come in, John, just with the report and just with the caddy missed collections, and I suppose being a rural dweller as well, being hugely impacted. But I think what was annoying a lot of people was that it was the regular non-collections seemed to be hitting particular roads and all the time, and so ones maybe hadn't got them collected for a month, 6 weeks, and that was having a huge impact. And the sort of things like that there, whenever you have a small bin for collection, you know what I mean, you can't be gifted with a large one. And I think it's just see if everybody was thinking about who was impacted most, but I see that from the Omagh area, 61% of missed collections was actually from the Gartrush depot, compared to 39% from the Killybilly depot. So we've been quite proportionate, disadvantaged up in this area, and maybe it was this area maybe that had more pressures with the higher levels than normal of staff turnover. So it's just good that hopefully we've gotten the crux of it, because Rural dwellers don't have the privilege of street lights or using council facilities right at their doorstep or within walking things. So people expect, you know what I mean, the small things that they do is actually working well and getting it done. So no, thanks a lot, John, and hopefully we're in the road to improvement.
Thanks, Anne Marie and Keith.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, thankfully, with regard to the bins being lifted, I didn't have much of a problem in my area, but I did hear a lot of people from our north and places like that there tonguing. And as the last councillor states, you know, a lot of people in the countryside, they see their bin collection as the only thing they get for their rates. And when they're not getting their bins lifted, it's a big issue. So with regard there, I see where the wish to note about the HGV drivers. My understanding was a lot of these bin lorries were going out and there was only one loader on them and they were only lifting blue bins down roads and leaving the brown caddies beside them, so that the lorries were going out. So has that been addressed? Obviously, there's general operatives within the council. Is there no way of bringing staff across, should a bin lorry not be fully staffed to go out, that you know somebody can make in management can make a decision in the morning and say, right, we need another member of staff here. A general operative, surely as a general operative, can they not be pulled across or be trained that you have a bank of people available? You know, obviously during COVID times, we had people in from the Lakeland Forum and different areas within the council went out and lifted bins and drove after the bin lorries. And I do believe it's something that we should be prioritising, that the bins should be lifted, and that we have to make sure that the bin lorries are going out and fully crewed, because it's not good enough. As I say, there's a lot of people see it, that all they're getting for their rates is their bins lifted. And if we can't lift the bins for the people, well, what's the point of us being here? So I propose tonight that we look, going forward, look at a way of pulling across staff, if need be, that this council, you know, we prioritise getting people's bins lifted. Because I'm sure the days that the bins, they weren't lifting brown bins, that there was only blue bins being lifted around, you know, I'm not sure off that you talk about task and finish for council staff. But I'm sure there was days that the bin lorry was back and they had hours to spend, sort of thing. So in that regard, they should have been lifting the brown bins, in my opinion, as they went along. But that's what I propose tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to come?
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the member. I suppose there's just a couple of comments maybe in response to the. I know the examples been given as the approach during COVID times and the approach over the last 6 months. I suppose we're post-COVID, and in terms of service operation, all the council services have now fully reopened, and you know, members will have heard recently, you know, across so many of those service areas that were so hugely impacted by COVID whenever things were closed, and when we did redeploy staff, those service areas are now back working at full tilt. So the opportunity to redeploy staff from those other service areas doesn't exist in the way that it did previously, because people have their own job to be doing, and those jobs are important, whether that's in other service areas and other directorates, whether that's within Environment and Place Directorate. And I suppose mindful of absolutely the bins and household refuse collection is one of the critical services the council provides, but it's only one of the services. You know, we have we have responsibilities across a much wider estate in terms of whether it's recycling, litter, whether it's within our estates management, grounds maintenance, etc. So opportunity, you know, we do on a daily basis, however, work collaboratively within the directorate, and staff are redeployed where there's an opportunity to do that. Yeah, so really those were the 2 points just to make, that, you know, it is proactively managed on a daily basis. We do redeploy staff where we can. And sorry, the example about the operatives and one lifter and a driver, on those occasions, when we're short-staffed, that we have health and safety and risk assessments to take account of as well. And I'm sure that our trade union colleagues and our staff, it was something if we thought that we were trying to get one person to do the work of two at any particular time. So I said we do need to, we are looking more generally at our services as part of the waste transformation, and I'd expect proposals to come back into the chamber when we have more clarity around the dairy guidance later this year.
Thank you, John. Anthony?
Yeah, thanks, Sharon, I'll be brief, and thanks for letting me back in again. Yeah, I just want to come back. Sorry for dragging on about these bins, but it is a major issue now in the rural areas, and thanks for your answer there, John. And I know on some of the backby small narrow roads that there's come 2 lorries out on my own road. The lorry comes out, lifts the blue bin, then maybe half an hour later there comes a small wee lorry to lift the wee small bin because the roads is that bad. Is there any way we can get a lorry that can still lift the 2 bins together, a smaller lorry than what is used, John? I was just wondering that as well. And Anne-Marie and Keith is right, when the rural people just be complaining about paying the rates, it's all we're getting with the recycling centres and the bins. So I'll second Keith's proposal as well.
Oh, just thanks to the director for coming back. Just with regard, I'm not saying about operatives doing the job of 2 people. I'm saying to do their day's work. Sort of thing, and whether that, the bin lorries coming back in at 11:30, 12 o'clock, is there no hours, set hours for a bin lorry? So basically, if they go out and lift the blue bins and they're finished at 11:30, they go home at 11:30, am I right in saying that?
Sorry, Chair, if I didn't tease that out in the paper, when I've referred in the paper to the task and finish and the review of our task and finish, that's absolutely one of the issues that we are looking at the minute, and we're looking at the minute, and have already been talking to staff and trade unions about the intention to review task and finish. It's a legacy arrangement from the 2 previous councils. It's a legacy arrangement which has now largely disappeared in all of the other councils across Northern Ireland, and we are monitoring it and actively working to bring forward proposals in that regard as part of the estimates process later this year.
Just very quickly then.
Just come back on that. With regard then to task and finish, they're tasked to lift the bins and they come back and half the run's not done. Is that classed as finished?
The task is to go out and collect the route, and if say there are health and safety considerations, that if a crew has been short-staffed, that they lift the bins to the extent that the crew is available to lift the bins, and certainly on those double runs that you're talking about, the blue and the recycling and the caddy, the business continuity plan would prioritise the lifting of the dry recycling, and the food caddy would then be deferred until the following collection schedule, which we appreciate the impact that has on households, and it's not our preferred outcome. It's a situation that we've been able to, I think, successfully address since that problem, or in that sort of pinch point in February and March time, with the additional recruitment that we've seen over the last number of months, and the recruitment and deployment of seasonal staff over the course of the last 2 months.
Thank you, John. Tommy?
No, Carly, thanks, Chair. It's just, I was going to comment there that I think we're getting very close to discussing terms and conditions of employees there, and I think we were all cautioned at the induction there last week that that's not a role of councillors or elected reps to discuss that amount of detail. And if the councillor wished to discuss it any further, he might need to go into confidential. I know I'm certainly unhappy with discussing that in the public arena. It's not a concern of councillors. We don't get involved with the terms and conditions of employees.
Yeah,
Very
good point made. And so we've had the, no, I'm not going to let you back in. Do you have a seconder? proposer and seconder to go back then. Anthony and Dermot. Okay, are we back now? Okay, so there was disagreement about going into confidential business, so we're going to put that to the vote now and see and take it from there. So everybody can vote whether it's just being set up there. Do their own, don't they? So the vote is about going into confidential business to discuss the, well, it's a question around employees' terms and conditions. So we're voting whether to go into, is that happened? Mine's gone off. Oh. Yeah, the vote's now live. If everybody can cast their vote, please. Okay, so there's oh, hold on, there's more being added. Oh, right, okay. So it's 3, 4, and 1 against. 3, 4, and 1 against. All right, okay. Mm. Okay, so the vote is actually 8-4 and 8 against, and as chair, I'm voting against. So it's so we won't be going into confidential business, and the reports that John's given have been proposed and seconded. So we're now, I'll now pass on to John.
Chair, just absolute clarity in relation to the bylaws relating to activity on the waterways. Just for clarity, the competent authority for the bylaws for the Erin system is Waterways Ireland. And I am aware that I think it's approximately 2 years ago that there were revised bylaws which were approved in relation to the operation of all activity on the water. So just to make members aware that the council have no authority in relation to the bylaws for activity on the water system on the Erin. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, John. Sorry, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Well, where would we have access to those bylaws as councillors, or did we receive a document in relation to that, or would we, in practice, receive those updated bylaws from Waterways Ireland, or maybe would that be a good idea going forward, maybe to clarify the situation, Chair?
Chair, I don't remember the bylaws ever coming through here through the council. Certainly, we can ask for a copy of the bylaws for the operation of activity on the water on the Erne system, and maybe that is a proposal, and if that could be proposed and second, instead of us really just in having any influence to the bylaws themselves.
Sorry, Chair, it was just about the navigation bylaws for the Erne navigation system are available on Waterways Ireland website, and we can circulate that link to members after the meeting.
No. No.
Thank you. I'd like to thank both the Johns for the updates, and whilst I was roughly aware, John Boyle has cleared up that Waterways do have the primacy, but I feel it needs a more collaborative group, and I thought maybe if we could have a meeting for a constructive way of going ahead, because the people who are having to deal with the messes on the lake are the ones that are identifying the problems. And if we can act as an intermediary, and also the problems that we identify from members of the public, then we could all maybe have an input with Waterways Ireland if we had a constructive meeting with them. So that would be my view. That was the ethos of my proposal, if you want. But I was kind of aware that they had the supremacy, but I believe DAERA may have and the non-functioning Stormont may have the supremacy, and the Department of Justice when it does come to enforcement. And again, that's another major problem that we're not going to sort out tonight.
John, do you want to just?
Yeah, Chair, if the member's content, could I suggest maybe at officer level, we would be in contact with Waterways Ireland, and certainly, as you know, on foot of this discussion, what we can do is look to facilitate a meeting with Waterways Ireland and any other interested parties regarding issues and a more collaborative or opportunities for more joined up approach in terms of safe use of the waterways and the Erne navigation system.
Okay, thank you. And there's item 6. Nobody has brought any urgent or relevant business to my attention. So happy holidays, everybody, and I'll see you in September. Well, I'll see you at other council meetings, but in regard to this meeting, I'll see everybody in September. Thank you. Bye.